The topics and opinions expressed in the following show are solely those of the host and their guests and not those of W4CY Radio, its employees, or affiliates. We make no recommendations or endorsements for radio show programs, services, or products mentioned on air or on our web. No liability, explicit or implied, shall be extended to W4CY Radio or its employees or affiliates. Any questions or comments should be directed to those show hosts. Thank you for choosing W4CY Radio.
Are you a songwriter? Are you looking to turn your songwriting passion into a full-time gig? Whether you are just at the start of your songwriting journey or a seasoned industry professional, this show is made for you. Welcome to the Songwriter Show, bringing together songwriting news, interviews, and community. Now, welcome your host, Sarantos.
Welcome back, everybody. Thank you so much for tuning in. And welcome back to the Songwriter Show. I'm your host, Sarantos, a solo music artist who's been writing lyrics forever. Words are so important to me, and that's why I'm so thrilled to host this show with you every Tuesday night. I believe that every song is a story. The Songwriter Show is broadcast live on number one ranked W4CY Radio and has listeners in all 206 countries in the world and every state in America. The station is licensed with ASCAP, BMI, CSAC, and Sound Exchange, and has partnerships throughout the music industry, including iHeartRadio and exposure to over 300 million listeners. Tonight's first guest is Linda Marks. Linda integrates elements of jazz with contemporary folk and pop freedom that can impress the ear while soothing the soul. Linda blends poignant original songs and fresh arrangements of favorite covers in an intimate heart-to-heart style. Over the past 6 years, she's played a wide variety of venues from Club Passim to Schuler's Jazz Club to City Winery to the Burr, and the list goes on and on. Welcome to the show, Linda. How are you doing tonight?
I'm good, Sarantos. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. So anything new going on with you? You got any new shows or anything you want to talk to us about?
I have a whole bunch of shows, but the most exciting thing is I have a brand new album called In Grace that was just released on all platforms on September 1st, which was Sunday. And the album has been getting fantastic reviews from industry professionals who've reviewed it, which is wonderful. And there are a lot of songs on the album that are very timely. There's a song called Tree of Life, which is it's a prayer to end gun violence, and it was written after the Tree of Life shooting. There's a song called Enough, which is about the teardown epidemic, which where I'm from in the Boston area is like a cancer going through the cities and towns and suburbs. It has a Me Too song called The Mistake. I wrote a wonderful inspirational song called Light Up the Love for the global Light Up the Love movement that a man named Jerry Manier, he used to be in San Diego, he's moved a little bit north, but he founded it because love is the one human superpower we all possess. So he's trying to encourage people to look at ways they can bring love into their lives for themselves and with other people and the larger world. So those are just a few examples of songs that are on my brand new In Grace album.
Wonderful. And was there a particular inspiration for this album? Something like a theme or central point that kind of, you want us to get out of it?
Well, the title song In Grace, in many ways, is the central theme. We're living in a time where there's so much chaos and there are all kinds of walls that, there are walls between people and walls up with our hearts. And it's very, very important to try to create spaces of safety, places where grace passes through. And I love grace as a quality because it has a deep spiritual foundation. It includes peace. It includes love. But there's something even more about grace as a way of being. It includes compassion and kindness and just sort of a humility that there are things greater than us that are very important in the world. So themes relating to grace are at the heart of most of the songs I've chosen. And I always put a little bit of fun in. I have some covers on the song as well. I closed the album with Imagine by John Lennon, which is a song of grace. I included a song totally for fun called Too Late to Turn Back Now by the Cornelius Brothers and Sisters Rose from the late 1970s that, as it turns out, Spike Lee used in his movie Black KK Klansman. And every album I make, I like to have something just really upbeat and fun like that. And fun and joy is a part of grace as well. So the timely songs that are a reflection of what's happening in our world are part of grace, and story songs can be part of grace, and even songs like Too Late to Turn Back Now that are fun can be part of grace as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And what was really fascinating, you mentioned that movie. I thought that was such a good movie.
It was fantastic movie.
Yeah, it really was. Tell us a little bit about. I know you've done some live shows and you got some more coming on. Do you ever get nervous when you perform live?
That's an interesting question. At one level, not really. At another level, about one particular thing, I'm dyslexic. So when I play the piano, there's always the chance I'll go into what I call the Russian roulette wheel of death spin, because my mind, for example, in a chord, if I have a B flat over F, I can flip it and make it an F over B flat. And I never know when that's going to happen. And it's not about not knowing music. It's not about not practicing. It could literally happen at any moment. And what's really funny, I did a live performance on a podcast. I think it was actually last Monday. And I did 8 songs live. And I was talking about the dyslexia and how I never know what's going to happen. And that night it didn't happen once. So that was fantastic. But it could happen. So the nervousness is more like, oh my gosh, is it going to happen? In terms of performing in front of people, even though I'm fundamentally an introvert, I've worked really, really hard in therapy and coaching to focus on the heart-to-heart connection with the audience. And if what I'm really there for is trying to make a connection, trying to touch them in some way through my music, there's nothing to be nervous about. Then it's not performing anymore. It's just like having a big living room and sharing a conversation through song with people in a large living room. So that part is fun. And I find when I step away from the piano, which I do sometimes, like when I put a live show together, my album release show for In Grace is on October 13th in the Boston area at a wonderful venue called the Burren in Somerville, Massachusetts. And I'm bringing along 9 or 10 other musicians to play with me. And I've just put the set list together and sent it to my band. But I'm going to step away from the piano for a number of songs. Like if I do a 90-minute show, I might step away 5 or 6 times and have the band play and me be in front. And that's what I enjoy the most, because when I'm behind a piano, it's harder to focus entirely on the audience. When I'm in front of the audience and I'm not at a piano, I can really make eye contact across the audience, and that's really joyful.
Yeah, absolutely. You talked about something. It's very different to be behind an instrument, and I know that even some, unless you're like Elton John or Billy Joel behind the piano, but even they come out, they don't stay back there.
Right.
And it's a very different feeling, a different interaction. And again, these guys have platforms built with spinny pianos and much different than what us indie artists can do. So yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I saw Billy Joel last summer, and he did step away from the piano for a number of songs to have and had his band back him, because it's completely different in terms of making contact with the audience. And I mean, people will often comment that I'm a good piano player, even though I'm a self-taught singer-songwriter piano player. But even someone like a Billy Joel or an Elton John, who are phenomenal piano players, it's different for them to step away and just focus on the audience.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm trying to remember, I saw Billy Joel in Phoenix, and I think it's his bass player, but he has some band member that has the most incredible voice that he let him sing a song. I don't know if he did that at your concert.
I don't remember if he did.
Yeah. So we got our first question of the night from a fan. What type of venues are you playing at, is what they're asking of you.
I like to play at what I call serious listening rooms. In the Boston area, there's a handful of top venues like Sculler's Jazz Club, Club Passim, the Burren, City Winery, Club Cafe. I've played at all of those. And I'll also play at house concerts. I love to do house concerts. If anyone wants to bring me to their city, I'm delighted to play at a house concert. I just need you to have ideally an acoustic piano or a good stage piano for me to play, because I can't put one of those on my back and take it across the country. I wish I could. But I love house concerts, and there are other serious listening rooms that aren't necessarily the big venues like the ones I named, where some of them are coffee houses. Some of them are set up to have music as a series. Some of them are restaurants, but not the kind of restaurant where you're sort of in the background with people drinking and talking. All that matters to me is that the venue is a place where people are expecting to hear live music, and that's why they want to be there.
Yeah, I've heard often, I have personally never done a house concert, but I've heard a lot of good things about it. To anyone that hasn't done it or to anyone that is thinking about it, it sounds like you're in favor of it.
Absolutely. Not only am I in favor of it, I run a house concert series here in the Boston area. I've done it for 4.5 years. It's called The Music Salon, and I do it every month, although in September, as it turns out, I'm doing it twice. And the format is designed to build community through music and art. So we begin with a potluck dinner. We have usually a featured visual artist, sometimes an author or poet, and then music. And I always do a half-hour set myself and then have some other musician as the featured musician. And the reviews that we've gotten for the house concerts have just absolutely staggered me, because I have a modest home where 20 to 25 people is a full house. But last month after the concert, there was a man who himself is a professional musician who said that the concerts at my home at the Music Salon are actually the very best he's ever been to, because with the intimacy, the people who are listening get to dialogue with the musicians. It's not like there's a separation as much between audience and performer. And it's much more fun to perform when it is literally being in a big living room. So house concerts are phenomenal, both for audience to listen and for performers to perform.
Yeah, that's really cool. So I'm going to sound a little ignorant, but I'm really curious about this because it seems I love the intimate part to it. I assume there's no PA system, no speakers. You just sing and people can hear you because it's the same room?
It depends. I have a concert quality baby grand piano in my living room, and I can't sing over that piano, so I use a microphone when I sing over the piano. However, if you have a guitar, my house has really good acoustics, and for guitar, you don't need to put an amp on the guitar or the voice, and that's part of the intimacy that's really lovely.
Yeah. And do you ever have, since it's a house and you can't fit a bunch of people, do you ever have people that don't bring a band that literally put their instrumental and then they just do the vocals over that? Or do you?
No. It's always live performance. I only book people that can fit in my space. I actually had a band that had 4 musicians and a singer, and they managed to fit into the space. We do the best we can to fit people in, but I wouldn't have a 9-piece band because that's too much. Actually, when my own band rehearses for the In Grace album release show, I'm going to have 9 people in my little space. And we've done that before. It's like we sort of take over part of the hallway and we sort of cram people in, but it is workable. And it's really cool. Wow. I wouldn't do that if it was a house concert because we actually need people to be playing in the space where people are sitting if I have 9 musicians in my space. But we've been able to fit 4. And, if it's anywhere from 1 to 3, it's just fine, particularly if one of the people is a piano player, then there's lots of room.
Wow. So you could fit a band in there. And then how many people, 10, 20, 30, how many people are listening or watching this?
I usually, somewhere between 12 and 25. 25 is usually where I try to cap it just because my house is modest and that's a lot of people in the space. But it's rare that it's less than 12 people.
Wow. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And, the fans also seem intrigued because they're asking all sorts of questions,
Yeah.
Is this an up-and-coming thing? Is this, but interesting.
It's absolutely. House concerts are an incredibly wonderful way to have live music because, first of all, everyone wants to listen. It is intimate. And you don't get into all the complexities when you go to a public venue where people have to eat or drink or, sometimes there isn't parking. And a lot of venues that have music have closed down. Here in the Boston area, sadly, a lot of major venues have closed down. So when you lose some of the venues that musicians have loved playing at and audience members have loved going to, something needs to replace it. And when you bring out house concerts, you're bringing the music literally into the community. And it isn't a commercial venture. I don't make any money for the house concert. I have a donation, and all the donated money goes to the performing artists for the evening. And I don't take money myself, even though I perform. So believe it or not, in my little intimate home where it's 12 to 25 people, a musician will often get a lot more money for performing for a 75 or 90-minute set than they would in most clubs, because clubs pay so little for people, unless you do the big clubs I mentioned at first, where they do actually give a reasonable amount to the artist. But then it's your job to put 100 people in a room, which is a lot of work. And if you put 100 people in a room with a decent ticket price, you can actually take something away. But then for me, if I bring 9 members of my band, I probably don't make enough to pay all my band, because I might pay my band decently and I don't expect them to play for nothing. But if you're like 1 or 2 people and you play in one of those rooms, then you can actually make some money. But short of the big rooms where you have to bust your butt to have 100 people fill the room, you get very little. Like when I was a musician in my early 20s, you might have like $100 for the night. Well, today in 2019, it's still often you're lucky to get $100 or $150. And if you have 3 musicians, you share the $150 among the 3 people, and you might have a 3-hour gig, with 45 minutes setting up, 45 minutes taking down, and driving an hour each way. So when you translate how much money that is per hour, you get a lot more working at Starbucks. So when someone comes to the music salon, if I ask people if they can donate $20 to do so, and if a person can't, whatever they can. But if, say, there are 20 people and we have $300, then that's so much more than most people would get for a 75 to 90-minute set.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Tell us a little bit about your website, where people can find out information about you.
Yes, my website is www.lindamarksmusic.com. I'm also on Facebook. I have a Linda Marks Music page as well as a Linda Marks page. I'm on Instagram. I'm on Twitter. I'm LSM Hard on both of those platforms. I'm on Reverb Nation. But my website is probably the best place to go. Oh, on YouTube. I have tons of videos on YouTube, which is a fun thing. My website, I try to keep current so that my performance dates are there. The dates for the music salon are there. I put up photographs. I put up a handful of videos. So it's and also I put links to a lot of my interviews over the last month, because In Grace was being released. I've done a lot of interviews, radio, TV, podcasts, all of the above, and some of them involve playing music live. So a lot of that is available on my website as well.
Yeah, interesting. Tell us about this song we're going to listen to. What inspired it?
Heroes was written as a tribute song when David Ortiz, who was a star for the Boston Red Sox, but much more than just a star for the Boston Red Sox, was shot on June 9th. David, in many ways, was like a contemporary JFK or MLK, because when we had the marathon bombing here in Boston, it was David who actually stood up and spoke on behalf of the city and became the voice of Boston Strong. And he brought people together. He helped people feel united in finding safety and grounding in a city that had just been terrorized, where people had been killed and injured. So David is a very strong leader in the greatest sense of the word. He also has done a lot of charity work, particularly with children, including both the United States and the Dominican Republic. And in the Dominican Republic, many people see him as an incredible figure, sort of up on a pedestal. So when he was shot, I was just devastated, much the way, to have someone like MLK or JFK shot is devastating. And the first thing that came to me was the question, why do we shoot our heroes? And so that's where the song began, when I got the news of what happened to David. And thank goodness, because he was an athlete, he managed to survive what for most people would have been a fatal shooting, although his rehab is very slow. And it's, he was in the hospital for 7 or 8 weeks after being shot because of the severity of his injuries to his large intestine, small intestine, liver, gallbladder, the lining that holds the intestines together. He had 3 surgeries. So anyhow, the song was looking at the question of why do we shoot our heroes, and who heroes really are. Heroes are human beings. They're people. They breathe. In fact, if you shoot one, they bleed and you can kill them. They're not gods. And they have families and they have children. And we often take that for granted. And I did a little research and I realized that David Ortiz will be 44 at the end of the year. JFK, RFK, and MLK were all in their 40s as well when the shootings took place. And there's something about when a person's in the prime of their life where they've accomplished enough, they've reached a position of power, they end up, people are jealous of them. People are, threatened by what they've accomplished. And even, one says that, when a person's light shines very brightly, sometimes it's scary for people who are hiding in the dark. So the song explores the questions of why on earth did this happen? And in the bridge, we're hoping to have people rise above this and find a way to transform this, because people need heroes, people need inspiration, people need people to look up to, and we also need to see us treat them well and not attack them and shoot them. It's a horrible message to children. I know, when I was 4 years old, that's when JFK was shot, and it was devastating. It really made a lifelong impression on me. So that's what's behind the song. And what's really interesting is the song became a very timely song in Boston. It ended up being covered in an article in the Boston Globe in July by a wonderful journalist named Bob Holer. And interestingly enough, too, someone who used to be, I call him the anti-sports Howard Stein of talk radio. He ended up playing my song because it was a good thing to get people talking, and they do a lot of making fun of things and the Howard Stern kind of thing. But the song got so many viewers that they played through my catalog the next day and started talking about my other songs, which is funny. And I've gotten a call from the producer of the show, and they'd like me to open for a comedy night that this man is doing, singing the song Heroes when they're able to set it up. So the song really struck a lot of chords with people in the Boston media.
That's wonderful. All right. Well, I want to thank you for being on the show, and we're going to hear your song right now.
Thank you.
Okay. Have a great one.
Thank you.
What's possible. Heroes offer us hope, make our worlds better, protect and inspire us. Heroes, what do we give them? Heroes are people. Show them care. Why do we shoot our heroes? Why do we gun them down? Does their light shine too bright in the darkness? By holding them up, do we put ourselves down? People need inspiration. It takes heroes to fan the flame, but evil can lurk in the shadows. What do we think is to blame? Martin, Robert, and John colored my childhood, serving the greater good. Now David, a copy to most, he is a good man. I just can't understand. Why do we shoot our heroes just when they're in their prime? Do their accomplishments make them a target for the guns and the hitmen of organized crime? What does this teach our children? How does this shape our lives? Real leaders bring courage and vision, traits that we need to survive. May our spirits rise. Can to end hatred. Will I see change in our time? Why do we shoot our heroes?
And now, welcome this week's special guest.
Oh, that was a wonderful song by Linda. And now I'd like to welcome our second guest to the show, Mike Ferry. Mike is an internationally known fiddler, songwriter, author, and teacher who lives in the Richmond, Virginia area. He has performed both as a solo artist and as a member of classical, pop rock, alt country, Irish traditional, and liturgical ensembles. Welcome to the show, Mike. How are you doing tonight?
Hey, Sorrentos. I'm doing great. Thanks so much for having me.
You're very welcome, man. So what is your main instrument?
Well, my first instrument was the violin. I started playing classical violin when I was 4 years old. And shortly after that, I moved over to piano and then a little bit of guitar and mandolin. But I would say that violin and keyboards are my primary instruments for sure.
Okay. Yeah, I was kind of hoping you'd say the fiddle. That's just,
well, you know,
that's just cool. You know, I've never. Yeah, go ahead, man.
No, well, I was going to say, you know, what one person's violin is another person's fiddle. You know, but people ask me all the time, you know, what's the difference between violin and fiddle? And really, it's all in how you play it. Sometimes you'll find a fiddle that has a lower bridge, so it makes it easier to cross the strings and play it with a faster speed, and to play some double stops, some chord type notes. But really, it's all in how you play it. Like, do you play? Are you trying to get a rich tone out of it, like a violinist, or are you trying to go for just like hoedown fiddler? So, call it what you will. Violin, fiddle, it's all good.
Yeah, that's cool. How old were you when you started playing?
So I was actually growing up in Greensboro, North Carolina. I was looking at the newspaper, and there's a picture on the front page of these kids around my age. I was 4 years old at the time, playing violin, and it looked like fun. And I said to my mom, "Hey, I think I want to try that." And of course, like most kids, like my own kids, I never really wanted to practice. And really, I'm grateful that my mom held my feet to the fire, because I would have quit as a youngster, but she wouldn't let me. She actually gave me the choice. She said, you know, should I go easy on you, or should I keep nagging you to practice? And I said, Mom, it's all right. You can nag me.
Yeah,
I need it. And it's just so funny, because I think that's the experience that so many people have playing, you know, piano lessons or violin or trumpet or whatever as a youngster, and you give it up. But if we could only just stick it out a little bit longer, then who knows what enjoyment you might get out of it. But it's much easier said than done.
Yeah, that's true. And you know, I think kids get excited about all sorts of stuff. You know, they try it, they start all sorts of projects and hobbies. You know, get a dog, get a fish tank, and then they quickly lose interest. So there's a little perseverance required for sure.
Oh yeah, without a doubt.
Yeah,
100%. Was
your family musical at all?
No, actually, it's really funny. Well, I should say I was actually adopted as a child, as an infant. So I've never met my biological family, and actually I don't really have much interest in doing so. But no, really, nobody in my family was even remotely musical growing up. So I guess the old argument of that nature versus nurture. For me, it's definitely in the genes. It was not in my environment. Although I have to say that growing up, my family is actually from Ireland. I grew up here in the U.S., but my grandparents all came over to this country from Ireland, and growing up, I was exposed to this Irish music, Irish traditional fiddle music and vocal music from a very young age, and I grew to love it. And that has had a big impact on the type of music that I'm playing now. I gravitate much more towards fiddle music and folk music, Irish, old-time American. That whole genre is it really speaks to me now much more than it did when I was younger.
Yeah, you don't watch Songland, do you?
Songland?
Yeah.
I've heard of it. I have not seen it though.
Okay. Yeah, I was just, I watched an episode. It's a pretty cool show, but I watched an episode with Macklemore, and one of the songwriters had this Irish kind of song that he picked because he was like, I just would love to just play this, in Ireland, and they actually showed him in concert playing it. So it's there's definitely a cool vibe. I've tried some Irish type stuff in some of my songs in the past, and it definitely has a cool vibe.
Oh, for sure. Well, the Irish music is just so infectious. It just has a spirit to it. It has this driving pulse that you don't find in many variations of folk music. It's just incredible. I mean, it's just like the Irish themselves. You can be dancing and going nuts one second and then crying on the floor the next. And it's that way with Irish music as well. The deeply melancholic and just the most powerful emotional stuff you could ever hope to hear on one hand, and then the next, everybody's up high-fiving, doing a jig. So it's cool.
Yeah, and Ed Sheeran's got a few, I can't remember the one song, Galloway Girl or something, but he definitely had some Irish influence on a couple of his songs that I heard too. So tell us a little bit about who's your hero musically? Anybody you'd want to jam with if you had the chance?
Oh, man. That's such a great question. Well, I would say that, like so many people, probably my favorite band growing up was the Beatles, without a doubt. So I would say any member of the Beatles, alive or dead, although it'd be great to go back in time and just be a fly on the wall in some of their recording sessions, some of their classic albums, and just to step in and play a few fiddle licks here and there. I think that would be absolutely incredible. I'm also a big U2 fan, maybe not surprising with the Irish connection. And it'd be very cool to play with those guys.
Yeah, absolutely. Tell us a little bit about your process. Do you like to do lyrics? Do you like to do music first, melody? How do you start and how do you get to the end?
Yeah. Well, so my journey has been kind of all over the map, just as a songwriter and an artist. I mentioned I started playing music when I was 4 years old. I was in a pop rock band for several years from my junior year in high school through college and then for a year after graduation. And we played all over the southeastern United States, and our radius was actually from New York to Miami, so we did pretty much the whole East Coast out there on the road. And since then, I've done a little bit of writing here and there. But I guess, it's different, and every song is a little bit different, although I find that the songs that I write that tend to be the strongest are those that start with the rhythm. If I can get a good beat and then build around that, then I think the song is going to have a much better groove to it. People can dance to it, relate to it. I'd say more often than not, I start with the rhythm section and then build around that. Sometimes I'll get a lyrical idea, but actually in recent years I haven't done very much lyrically. The last album I released was actually an album of fiddle tunes that I wrote in honor of Virginia, the state where I currently live, in honor of the history and the natural beauty of Virginia. So I picked a number of famous people and different beautiful locations around the state, and I composed traditional sounding fiddle tunes without lyrics. But for my previous projects that did have lyrics, I would say the strongest ones started out with the music, but sometimes I did start out with lyrics.
Okay. I like to try to ask this of every guest, but tell us a little bit about a scam that we as musicians should be wary of. Maybe one you've fallen for, one you've heard about. Anything you want to warn the rest of us about?
A scam?
Yeah.
Man, I don't know. Like a specific musical scam. Well, there's one going around. People saying that your Apple ID has been hacked, and you need to go to this number and send some ungodly amount of Bitcoin currency or something. I'm not sure if that's specific to musicians or not, but I think just in general there are lots of shady characters all over the place, but for whatever reason, many of those people tend to gravitate towards music and the types of venues where we often find ourselves. And you do have to be careful. You have to try to surround yourself with quality people, folks you can trust, and just through it all, just to have the faith that you're doing something good and that something that other people will enjoy and will lift their spirits, and just let that carry you through.
Okay. Tell us about the funniest thing that's happened to you in the last year.
The funniest thing that's happened to me in the last year. Oh my gosh. Well, I'm a dad. My wife and I have 5 kids, and man, such a strange question to ask, because every single day a million hilarious things happen when you when you got a bunch of kids.
Sure.
But, I'm a little on the spot here. I can't think of anything, but
I'm going to kind of keep this show going here. We only had a couple of minutes to talk to Mike. Tell us your website. I want everyone to get your website.
Sure. That's MikeFerryMusic.net, MikeFerryMusic.net. And I want to tell some folks about this project I have called Fiddlin' for Feedmore, where I'm trying to record fiddle tunes. And if people like the songs and like the different locations where I play the songs around the Richmond, Virginia area, then consider donating to Feedmore, which is a food kitchen in the Richmond area, or to a local food kitchen in your own area.
Cool. Tell us about the song we're going to hear here in a couple minutes.
Yeah, okay. So this is an instrumental piece. I mentioned that I've sort of gravitated away from some lyrical tunes recently, focusing more on instrumentals that will eventually find a home in film and TV and video games and stuff like that. This is called Funky Number 1 because I think it just has kind of a funky, hopefully enjoyable beat. And this is one of those tunes that I started off with the rhythm. Just got a really cool drum loop part, and then I said, "Oh man, this is fun. I'm going to have to put something together around this." So I hope that people like it.
Cool. And what genre is it?
So I would say that it's sort of pop rock with a little bit of funk in there.
Okay. So we got about a minute left here before we listen to your song. Can you tell us a little bit about what is it the thing that you look forward to doing every single day? You get out of bed and you're like, I got to do this.
Oh man, the thing I love to do every single day, I would say, well, sadly, it's not making music. It's not with my crazy schedule. That's not something I get to do every day, which is unfortunate. But I would say just reading. If I can't give myself just a few minutes of downtime, quiet time, to disappear into a book, then I'll just go crazy. So I'd say every day I've got to have some book time, without a doubt.
Okay, cool. All right, Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show, man, and we're going to hear your song right now, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Hey, thank you so much. It's been fun.
All right, have a good night.
All right, take care.
All right, so here we go. We're going to Very cool there. I want to thank both Linda and Mike for being on the show tonight. Two wonderful guests, and it was a very, very big pleasure to talk to both of them. So in finishing up the show here, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the new song I got. But before I do that and leave you with it, I want to thank all the fans and musicians for listening in again to the Songwriter Show. To any listeners who may be artists, if you wish to be on the Songwriter Show, please feel free to just reach out to me. I hope everyone's unique story gets heard around the world. My name is Sarantos. Please join me every Tuesday night right here to listen to other amazing artists share their fascinating behind-the-scenes stories right here at the Songwriter Show. And the song that I'm going to finish the show with tonight is a song that I just released actually today called Coming Home. When I look at things, I think of it like this. We all have a story. It began somewhere. Home can be many things to many people. To some, it's their beginning. To others, it's where they begin and where they end. For others, home is only something they find after many years of searching. And for still others, home is something they ran away from or got tired of, only to realize years later how much they truly love it and miss it, and how comfortable it feels when they go back there. For me, this song is a story of Greece. When I was in grammar school, my mom would take us to Greece for 2 to 3 months every summer to visit her brother. This meant 7 trips when I was in grammar school, and as I grew older, past the tender age of 8th grade, I complained that I wanted to stay back in Chicago to hang with my friends. So after 8th grade, I didn't go back to Greece for 11 years, and when I did, it was in March to bring my grandfather back here. It was then another 18 years until I went back. And I gotta tell you, I've now realized what a mistake my hormonal teenage self made. I want to try to go to Greece every single summer from this point forward for at least 2 weeks because it always feels like I'm coming back home. My DNA just feels comfortable there, and I always come back to Chicago re-energized and full of life. So this is my indie folk rock song about coming back home. According to me, it's the best song on my 6th album. And as I continue to search for my signature vocal style, you might be surprised to find out that there's barely any reverb on this vocal track. Yep, it's almost all me. I hope you guys enjoy it, and I can't wait to share the music video with you next week. Thank you again for tuning into the Songwriter Show. I love you all, and I wish you all the best.
I ran away to the city that one day. There I found so much trouble, nearly drowned. The bold taste was a thrill, but a waste. Only ended up in a corner, badly dented up. Each dawn brushings, no real freedom in the rain. Was the smell of wonder and way we fell. Needed you, the green grass and thunder. The mirror couldn't lie. Sad, tired eyes, so I said goodbye. Trapped and scared. Even I couldn't stop me. Forgot everything you taught me. You were right, the leeches latched on so tight. I learned my lesson late, but now I make my great escape. The journey was long, but I'm coming home.
Thank you for listening to The Songwriter Show. To keep the momentum going, head over to www.songwritershow.com and join our free music community of artists, songwriters, and producers. That's www.songwritershow.com.